from self-discovery to unapologetic passion, from inner strength to outward influence. It's Your Turn charts the journey of empowerment. Welcome to our series, where the book comes to life. In each episode, we explore a chapter's wisdom through real stories. We uncover the strategies that turn potential into power. And we witness how one woman's journey can inspire countless others. Prepare to see yourself in these pages and voices. Because with every story, we're reminded, it's your turn to write the next chapter.
Welcome to this new episode of the book interview. It's your turn. And I am thrilled today to welcome Francesca Lagerberg for this insightful interview. As the CEO of Baker Tilly International, a top 10 global accounting firm, Francesca brings a wealth of experience and passion to her role. With a career primarily focused on professional services, she has held various positions, from heading tax departments to coordinating multiple international member firms. Her dedication to helping firms grow and realize their potential is unwavering. Francesca's influence extends beyond the boardroom. She has published numerous articles, appeared on TV, spoken on the radio, led podcasts, had interviews like here, and graced countless stages to promote the accounting profession and the vital work it does. Her commitment to raising the profile of professional services and inspiring growth within the industry is truly inspiring. And today I am so excited to delve into Francesca's insights and experiences. Her journey and expertise will undoubtedly provide valuable perspectives and inspiration for you as a reader or watching this video or listening in. So welcome, Francesca. It's an honor and a real pleasure to have you here. How are you doing?
Oh, well, thank you, Helen. That's a very kind introduction. I'm looking forward to our discussion.
Absolutely. Me too. And I'm very sure our readers also. So let us just, jump in with the first question, which is basically about part 2 of my book, where I am talking about the recurring themes and assumptions and types of self-talk that can really hinder us in building our confidence, building self-confidence, go for that promotion, go for something completely new. And so I'm interested, if I look at you and your journey that has been marked by a series of remarkable accomplishments, including running a top 10 global accounting firm. So if you reflect on your inner dialogues, what recurring themes and assumptions have you noticed?
Well, it's a great question because I think at different stages in your career, different things impact you. But in the early stages of the career, certainly when I was coming through in my own profession, you just didn't see too many female role models. So it was quite easy to convince yourself that actually that wasn't a job you'd ever get a chance to do. Maybe you just didn't fit, you weren't the right kind of person, you didn't go to the right kind of school. You saw all of those things which were very much in the head rather than necessarily in reality. So certainly that was in the early stages to kind of looking for somebody who looked or sounded a bit more like me. Was that a role that I could step into? And I think now when I look at people who I'm coaching or mentoring or just see going through different stages of the career, you still see a touch of that. People who are going, actually, I'm here and that's okay, but I don't think I could go there. And I think we do, this is both men and women, I do think we talk ourselves out of quite a few things. And one of the great joys of talking to those who've been phenomenal in their own profession or just fantastic leaders of their department or their office or whatever it is, the job that they're doing, is very often they will tell you the same thing. I wasn't quite sure I could do it. I got offered this opportunity. I didn't push myself forward for it. I didn't think it was for me. So I think it's very prevalent for us to talk ourselves out of things and not embrace the fact that you don't need to do absolutely everything to deserve the next step forward.
I believe also it is about perfectionism in many times. It's about perfectionism. It's also about thinking that Why me? There's so many other people that can do this job. I don't have this specific diploma or this specific expertise, so I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to, manifest myself. I feel it also in the work I do with women when I coach them as entrepreneurs or as executives, even promotion negotiations, salary raise negotiations. There's so many rather simple situations. Well, they're simple in terms of they're not complex, but they're not easy situations where women say, "No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go there. Might be too confrontational." People might say, who do you think you are?" And I always try to say to make them see that instead of saying why me, they could also say why not me. Does that resonate? Is that something that you also see in the
Yes,
people that you mentor, that you coach?
yes, I think that that's a nice way of looking at it. Why not, as opposed
Mm,
to why? I think if you have a job description for whatever the next role is that you may or may not want to do, if you tick 4 out of the 5 boxes on it, you're probably good enough to go for it. If you only tick one of them, you probably are rightly doubting whether you've got the skill set. You don't have to tick all 5. I interview lots of people for lots of jobs, and very often the candidate who gets through doesn't meet every single requirement on that
yes.
job, because job specs often are about kind of the ideal, the perfect world, the super person that probably doesn't exist. But if they're actually got the right attitude and they have some of those skills, particularly the most important ones of those skills, they can usually not only do a great job, but they can grow into the bits that they don't necessarily have everything sitting in their lap immediately. So I think we're very good at talking ourselves out of things. I think
Yeah,
also
absolutely.
it's it's super easy to kind of go, oh, I don't want to have to deal with failure. I don't want to have to deal with what happens if I don't get that job or I don't get that role, or maybe I'm going to hear something I'm not ready to hear. But the
Yeah.
reality is, the things that you do least well are the ones you often learn the most from, and the constructive criticism that you get is probably the most valuable. And actually, if you, it's like going for expecting to win the lottery but not buying a ticket. You know,
Mm.
you've got to at least put yourself forward. If you think that you've got enough of those skills, you just don't need to be absolutely perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. When we look at you, given the challenges that you have faced, because you are operating in a predominantly male environment, right? And you are operating at a very, very high level. So when you look at your past experiences that you probably also had, past experience of self-doubt or pressure to conform, how have these shaped your beliefs about yourself? And how have you transformed these experiences into strengths? Because that's basically the whole thing. This is for me a big way to shift things for your career and basically for to thrive in general.
Yes, I think I did work in a very male-dominated environment. I say that in the past tense because today it's not quite so male-dominated. And in fact, in terms of the intake into the accounting profession, it's pretty much 50-50, which is
Mhm.
fantastic.
Are
Although,
we talking at all levels?
no, because as soon as you get to the more senior levels, sadly, it begins
Mm,
to shift. And some of that is self driven. People look at it and
mm,
go, that isn't what I want to do. That isn't right for me. That's a choice. And other people take a view that they actually can't get there, or they don't think they've got enough to get there. So I think you do see that shift in that environment is big slowly taking place. But of course,
mm,
we've all seen the research, we've all seen the stats to actually get to some level of parity particularly across genders, although also equally true of many other areas, it's going to take a very long period of time, and we need to do everything we can to speed that up, accelerate that
mm,
process. But in terms of myself, I think there was a certain vision that I thought I had to adhere to in the early days of my career. I definitely thought I had to work harder than anybody else to get to the same place as some people would get to. I mean, some of that is because by nature I'm quite a hardworking person, but I thought I had to be even better than
mm,
everyone around me. And I think that was as much me as the environment I was in. I believed I had to work harder, do more, show more, became very, very driven about showing that element that, you know, I might not be the brightest, I might not be the smartest person in the room, I might not be the best at a particular area, but I was always going to be the person who worked the hardest and put the most effort in. And that felt in control, like something I could control. And I really actually enjoy work. I always have. But I think there was a piece there that for a while I thought was a necessity. Whereas I think
Like
as
you
I've
had to
got
earn your place.
I just knew where I was. And I think as I've got older, I've got a little bit more relaxed about
Mm,
that. And I've also realized that it isn't necessarily about the quantity of stuff you do. It's obviously the quality, but also you showing it that you're bringing value. Where's the
mm,
value that you're bringing? And value could be something quite small, but really important. So I'm a lot more focused on that. And I think another massive part of this question is about authenticity. If you're trying to be something that you're not, it's really hard to keep that up. That's pretty painful. And as I've perhaps got a little bit older and wiser, I realize that there's certain elements of me that are what they are, and I want to embrace them. I don't want to play them down. So authenticity is hugely, hugely important, because if you're not being who you really are,
mm.
then you probably aren't giving of your best in a work situation. And also people they feel it, even if they can't put their finger on it, there's something doesn't feel right. So some of the great leaders, and I've been lucky enough to work with some fantastic people, some of the great leaders, they are very, very authentic. They're not following some cookie cutter mold. They are somebody who's being themselves, but being the very best of themselves.
Mm. Yeah, it's very interesting that you mentioned that. And I would like to go back to the moment where you said, okay, I'm not really working in that male-dominated environment anymore. Things are shifting. What I see and what I hear is that although there are shifts, they're like you say, they're mainly at the entry levels, and there's a moment where it stops, where like it's every organization has an issue filling that pipeline at executive level. And even if there's things are changing and shifting, still the system, the way it works in organizations, the way it works in corporate, it's still the system like it has been installed by men. And this is not a judgment. This is just a reality in terms of also what leadership qualities are validated. Yeah. What does it take to win? What does it take to promote? What does it take to become a partner? And these things for women sometimes are very difficult because, I mean, we have adapted and we have adopted and we have activated our inner masculine leadership qualities, sometimes at the cost of our feminine leadership qualities. I strongly believe it's time to activate those as well. And it's not a gender thing, because it would be wonderful if it would also be activated with men, because we all have all this complete scale of leadership qualities inside of us. But then I see that a lot of women feel they don't really belong because they cannot really build on their strengths. They build on the strengths that have been put there as the strengths that you need to be a leader. And so I see a lot of women also turning into that concept of imposter syndrome. Like, I don't know. I don't know if I sometimes feel like I don't belong here. I sometimes feel that I'm, like you say, that I'm not authentic, that I'm not really bringing to the table what I could bring, and I'm hiding parts of myself because I know that they are not validated. So how does that resonate with you? And if you see that, what is it that we can do as women leaders in order to once again to overcome that?
Well, maybe if I start with a punchline and then come back and answer some of the elements of your question there. Punchline piece is that if you look at leadership skills today, one of the most important leadership skills is empathy. And empathy is something that traditionally women tend to be particularly good at. That's not to say men can't do it, because of course they can,
Mhm.
but it tends to be a skill that women seem to be more attuned to. And I think that's a great leadership skill for anybody. Are you
Mhm.
empathic? Are you able to take the time to really think about what's truly going on, be emotionally intelligent? All of that is huge for your success as a leader. And I think great leaders, male and female, have amazing emotional intelligence.
Mhm.
The piece about imposter syndrome, and it's quite a debate raging about, does that really exist? Is that perhaps just a name being given to that natural nervousness that you have about, do I really belong? Which I think everybody has that at some stage in their career. But I think there's perhaps a piece around, why do you Why do you feel you're out of place? Is it because you don't see role models who are like you? Is it that you're actually getting that feedback? And are you able to constructively challenge that feedback if you're getting it? Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. But what's actually at the root of it? What is it that's happening? And also taking the responsibility and ownership on yourself to do that. One of the things that's incredibly difficult is that you sometimes kind of hope that everybody sees this awesomeness that you know is within you, and they're going to embrace it and go, yes, let me take that person and bring them forward and put them on the pedestal. Life doesn't work like that. So you do have to do things to showcase what you're really good at. You do need to have outputs that are really helping the business. And you do need to show your value, and that the value that you bring is probably the most important thing. You know, what are you bringing to not only the role you're in, but that next role? And that's something that is within our power. And I do feel that for the people who choose not to go up the promotional ladder, that shouldn't be seen as a negative. If they've made a choice based on their life, based on how they feel, they might not want to work long hours. They might just not want to do that. They might want a different kind of lifestyle. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's a choice. But for those who really do want to do a different, you know, really go up the more traditional working ladder, there are various things that you have to trade off to be able to do that. And those are the difficult decisions. I think perhaps to really answer your question right at the beginning, the bit that you were pointing out is do we actually have things that just prevent us? Is there, for women, it's often called a glass ceiling, of course, but are there barriers to growth and potential? And the reality is, in some cases, yes, there are. So how can you change that dialogue? What is stopping it happening? Is it because there is a system in place that precludes people? Is it because no one's ever done it before and it just feels kind of strange? You ask people to articulate what the leader should look like. Well, very often you'll find some pretty old-fashioned thinking going on in there. So sometimes it's a case of, have you actually seen what the difference could be? I think things are slowly changing for the positive. People being more open to the fact that diversity gives you a much better opportunity to make the best possible decisions for your business. But also, sometimes it is about showcasing that actually some different thinking can really help you. Because if you're in an environment where everybody looks the same, sounds the same, makes the same decisions, you're only going to go to one particular place. You're going to be a nice little echo chamber, and you will stop there because there's nothing else you can do, because you are continuing to be in that circle. If you want to go further up, you are probably going to have to do some things differently, and that probably means different people and different thinking. So I think there's a very strong commercial driver in here about, if you really want to get to the next level, whatever that might be, you can't possibly carry on doing exactly the same things you're doing now. So what is it that's going to make the biggest difference?
Exactly. I like that. You know, this is what this book is about. Also, it's called It's Your Turn, because it is about show up. You know, we have it in us. Just make sure that we have access to it, that we know our strengths, and that we find our language or vocabulary to bring it to the table. And I love you here. You know, I love hearing that also in your story, because we can talk about the glass ceiling. And there has been so many people talking and writing about the glass ceiling in organizations, but we also have our inner glass ceiling. And this is the conversations that we have with ourselves and the limits that we are putting on ourselves. And while you were talking, I was thinking about the book that was my Bible, and I still advise it to some of my clients, by Sally Helgeson. It's called How Women Rise. And it is about the 12 things that we do. I'm not going to deal with them right here, but if you're interested, just get the book and read it. It's about the 12 things that we do as women leaders, or as aspiring women leaders, that don't make us go further. And it is all about, you know, not showing up, not using your voice, not bringing what you have to the table, not basically not negotiating, thinking that everybody will see what you're doing, thinking that everybody can read between the lines. And that's absolutely not the case, because you have to show up, you have to raise your voice. And that makes the difference. And I like that you say that role modeling sometimes is it's difficult. There are not that many, because we don't have that many generations that actively fully participate in professional life the way it is now. And so women like you, who are at the CEO level are not only role models, but are also paying it forward as a mentor, as a coach, as giving this interview for the book in order to be there to support other women that are also paving that way. And so I'm very grateful, and I really appreciate that these women exist and are there to reach out for other women that still need some support and backup and sponsorship. Absolutely.
Well, paying it forward is a hugely important element here. You have a
Yeah.
responsibility,
Mm.
whichever leadership role you're in, to
Yes,
make it better for the people who are coming behind you, male,
absolutely.
female, everybody. But I also am lucky enough to have, as well as two sons, to have a daughter, and I do not want her to be in a working environment that's the same as the working environment I walked into back in the
Mm.
1980s. And it's part of my job to make sure it isn't like
Yeah.
that. And I think everybody has that same responsibility. If all the experience of people who are listening to this, who are reading your book, all of your experience is hugely, hugely important. So don't waste it. Really help it to make things better.
Yeah. We already touched it lightly. What is a very interesting concept is the definition of success. What is it to be successful as a woman leader? What is it to be accomplished as a woman leader? And we tend to look at success in a very linear way. First of all, there's like, especially in accounting firms or in law firms, there's, this linear way of promotion. And I even see women that starting to build a family that they're not sure, because it's like breaking that line, it's like breaking that linear system, and that is about how you define success. And so I'm very interested to find out what your definition of success is, because I always believe that we need to create our own very personal, individual, authentic definition of what success really is for us, not what it is in general.
No,
What's your view on that,
it,
Francesca?
it's a great question because I think it is a very personal piece. I mean, there's sort of, if you like, veneer success, which might be about awards or title or public recognition, and that is what it is. But perhaps much more important is, do you feel successful in yourself? Yeah, have I achieved what I wanted to achieve? And that could be a range of levels, that you don't necessarily have to be at the very top of your corporate hierarchy to have got success. Have I fulfilled the potential I wanted to fulfill? Have I made decisions I'm proud of? Do I feel satisfied with what I have? I'm avoiding the word happiness, but I do think joy plays a huge part in people's definition of success. Are you joyful in the job you do? Are you joyful about what you do? When people ask you what you do you kind of just mumble and go, "Oh, I'm just kind of doing that"? Or do you actually say, yeah, I'm doing this, and this is why it excites me, and this is why I'm thrilled to be in it? So I think success is very personal. I think it's about, how does it make you feel? How does it make you think? How does it make you want to talk about the role you're in? It's all the senses. And I don't think you need to be at the top of your hierarchy to have success. I think you need to have success that meets the needs you have. I know many people who have actually opted to do roles that you kind of go, oh, you could have done so much more, but actually go, but I'm really, really content with it. This is what I want. This makes, I feel very successful. I'm giving something back, and you always come back to value. The person who works in a library, fantastic job, really, really, and they help people to learn more about life, the world, and everything. Some might say, is that a successful job to be in? Well, it is, because it's providing value to people. So I think there's something really important about, what is the impact you're making? Are you helping the community you're in? Are you able to look back on that when that time comes for you to stop doing it and go, yeah, I made a difference, and I also helped people around me. And that for me is success. If you can do that, it's a much more fulfilling thing than some job title or some piece in the newspaper.
Yeah. Could you also say in a way that it is shifting from looking for the external validation to going to the internal validation of what is important to you, and not what is like the shiny objects that we are supposed to chase in
Yeah.
life, like the big car and the big salary and the corner office and things like that?
Yes, I think it's a combination, isn't it? Because I think if you've got the internal piece right, some of that external piece comes with it, which is, it's nice. I mean, you're not going to object to people going, hey, you're doing a great job. But if you haven't got the internal piece right, it doesn't matter what you're called, it doesn't matter how much money you're being paid, you're not going to be satisfied with where you're at. So I think the internal comes first, and some of the external one flows from it.
Yeah. Another thing that I see, and I had that too, not until recently, but I know I've been there also, that is that we are sometimes really underestimating our contributions. And so if we are validated, if we are receiving congratulations or compliments, that we're like, oh, that's nothing. That's just, instead of really accepting and receiving the compliments or the validation, we try to put it aside, like, I'm not going to be too much in the spotlights. Is that something that you recognize? And if so, what did you do in order to change that and to start really affirming your strengths for yourself and for the people that you are working with?
Well, I'll let you know when I've done it. I think I think I'm still very guilty of that. I am British, so obviously we don't want to overdo the praise. So I think that you do, if you're inclined that way, you do have to make yourself take a beat and go, actually, that was a lovely compliment. That was something that I know. Thank you for that. I'm really grateful for that. And I think occasionally we're so quick to push that back. Go, well, that's just my job. That it does require you just to take that moment and go, yeah, that's really lovely. I'm going to put that away in my head. No, it's there. But when things aren't going so well, I can remember, oh, yeah, that was actually quite good. So I think there's a piece around that. And it is about taking the time to enjoy things when they go well, celebrate the successes, and make sure that you are not just focused on next, but there is a moment where you go, actually, job well done. So big fan of the team celebrations, individuals being recognized for the value that they've given, and just giving people time to take a moment, go, yeah, that was actually really good.
Yeah. These internal narratives that we have, because we're talking about communication, we're talking about raising our voices, showing up, which is basically coming out of the dark. And this is, of course, very, very important because we live, we work, we thrive in community, and we have our stakeholders. And at the same time, we also talked about that here. We have these internal conversations. So it is a lot about conversations. It is a lot about the vocabulary we use, the language that we use. It is about also being kind to yourself, like you would be kind to a child or a dear friend or a team that you are leading. When I see you and when I hear you and when I feel your energy and your presence, then I see a woman who has been very, very successful. You're the CEO of a top 10 accounting firm. So there is ambition. There's no other, I think I can say that. There is ambition, there's achievement, there's manifestation. And yet also when I hear you, you are extremely present and you are extremely kind and very nuanced. It's like you do have this connection with what is going around in your organization and in the world. So what is your advice for other women watching this conversation or reading this? Because even if though not anybody can or wants to become a CEO, women want to find fulfillment and they want to build momentum, if possible, unstoppable momentum in as many aspects of their lives. And it feels like you have that harmony. I don't like to talk about balance because once again, that's very linear, but this harmony, this integration, how do you do that?
Oh, well, lots of lovely things you said there. So thank you for that. Well, it is like a wobble board, isn't it? It is this up and down, up and down. So nothing is linear. I think that's a very nice way of describing it. You are trying to find something that enables you to deal with the ups and downs. Life, and it wouldn't it be lovely if life just went like that? It just doesn't. It's like going down a fast flowing stream. You're going up and down and round, and things come at you, and volatility is part of the world we live in. And being able to wrap your arms around that volatility and not let it throw you off. change is inevitable. Things change all the time. Nothing stays the same. So how do you kind of get used to that? And I think that is about accepting that things aren't going to just go smoothly. There will be bumps along the way. Learning fast about where there's bumps and failing fast, because you're going to make a lot of mistakes, and that's okay. Never be upset about making mistakes. If you've made sort of sensible things that just haven't quite got you where you want, what did you learn from that? How do you move forward? And I think probably the biggest piece of advice is building some resilience, because things are going to be choppy from time to time. You'll have wonderful moments, special moments, and they'll be all the better for the fact that you've come through some bumpy ground to get there. So if you view it not like a linear climbing a mountain, because that does feel very much like that, but more like just getting to a safe harbor, getting to a good place, it's not going to be straightforward. And that's okay. Some people look like they serenely sail through life, but they are the duck with the little feet going underneath. They're paddling like crazy. They're seeing what so many things are happening in their lives, and it's how you're able to deal with it. So I think there's something about how you react. You can control how you react. You can't control what's going on in the world. There's mad stuff can happen all the time, but you can control how you react to it. Do you kind of go into a flat panic? How can you learn to manage that? Do you get very anxious? Are there coping mechanisms to deal with that? Do you find it overwhelming? And at many stages, things are overwhelming. How would you learn to manage those? So what you can control is within yourself. How do you react to that stuff? How do you see the positive, where there is positive there? And then what do you learn from it to help you get to the next stage? I've been lucky enough to meet some incredible leaders over the years, and not a single one of them has had an easy time. They've all had things that have gone really badly, the mistakes, things that have happened to their businesses, stuff completely out of their control. But all of them have learned from it, but also all of them have learned how to control their reactions to it, which is hugely important, that you don't let it become something that pulls you down. It's something that enables you to kind of go, okay, I can float. I can get my head above water. I can deal with this.
That's wonderful. I love the metaphor with the duck that is seemingly, going on a beautiful lake or wherever you want to see it, and then under the surface they're like paddling like crazy. And I think that a lot of us will recognize that. And what you bring here is so important. It is about, like you say, building this resilience. I also call it building strategic agility, because it is not only about resilience in the moment, bouncing back in the moment, or go around it, or reframe, or refocus, or redirect, depending on what is happening. But it is also this resilience and agility in terms of our long-term aspirations. And it is so important to have those, and to have this inner compass, because like you say, the world is very complex, and life will throw curveballs at you all the time. Nobody is free from that. And so it's very difficult to navigate these things if you don't have a compass. And for me, this compass is your inner compass. It's about knowing who you are and what is really important for you. What are your values? What are your non-negotiables? And this you can always rely on, even if you don't see where you're going. It is like your inner guidance. You can also call it intuition, but not everybody likes that word or knows how to deal with that word or with that concept. But there's so much to say about, the relationship we have with ourselves, how well we know ourselves, and how well we can put the boundaries in order to also explain and make explicit to others where our boundaries are and what is really important for us and where we want to go and how we want to get there.
Yeah,
And
boundaries are huge here, because you are going to be asked at times to do things that you actually don't want to do. And you might be, you don't want to do it because you're scared. That's a very different piece. But there's some things you might be asked to do that you don't want to do because it is against your values, or it's something that you just don't agree with the decision. And then obviously it's all about, can you articulate effectively why that's the wrong decision for the business? Because everyone is entitled to give a view, but they can be very tough. And there's often some really, really tough decisions you have to make. And there's no easy one. They're just not. There's not a simple answer, but there are many, many tough decisions. And I think with those, it's, have you done the right thing? Have you made the best use of the information that you've got? Has it been true to your own values and the values of the business that you're in? Because they might be similar, but they are not always the same. And then can you look back at it and go, this was a really tough decision, but we did it for the right reasons. We did everything in our power to do the best thing for all the stakeholders involved. And then, those tough decisions then doesn't stop them being tough, but they do become decisions where you can go, I think I did the best I could have done in those circumstances.
Yeah, absolutely. This is about being intentional in terms of why am I doing this? What is really, really important here? And it's about consciousness. It's about really being aware about what is at stake, what is relevant, what is important. And this is absolutely also what I want to bring with the book. Understanding these concepts and the way that you are documenting them in this conversation is really amazing. I have a last question, Francesca, and this in this topic about inner narratives or belief systems. Do you have like a special quote that is very relevant, something that people can really remember and say, yes, that's it. That's really guiding us in this concept, in this conversation. Something
Oh,
is
oh my goodness, like you threw me with that one. I just think, is there a single quote that I could think of? Gosh, there's
or
so
a
many.
metaphor or
Yeah. Oh, there's so many amazing and fantastic commentators in this area who come up with things far better than I would. I, I I suppose for me, the thing that I find most important in a leadership role today is, am I being true to myself and am I being true to the people around me? So am I doing it's all about value, providing that, in my view, am I giving the best possible value from what I can bring to this? Are we giving the best possible value to the clients or to the people we work with or the environment we're in? That's not really a quote, maybe more of a comment, but I think value is huge and hugely important. Do I feel that at the end of each day or the end of each week or at the end of each year, overall, have I given the value that I feel that it is appropriate for what I'm doing? Am I providing value to the people around me and to the clients that I work with?
I like it. I like it. And what I sense is that in what you say and what you do, and it of course also shows in your career and in the journey that you have, is that I feel your connectedness, not only with yourself, but also with all stakeholders. Because every time you say, is this relevant? This is important. Does this have value? It is the value for people that are around you, clients, your team, your organization. And I believe that is very important that we understand that we are not alone in this world, which is a very good thing. And also that we have, like, I would say, a responsibility, although sometimes people think that it's too harsh, to make that reflection, like, how am I relating to the others? And what's my relevance? And what's the value that I add? What's the quality of my interaction with this
Yeah.
world? Because we cannot live isolated. And that is very beautifully brought in this story, Francesca. And I really thank you for that.
Thank you. And thanks for the questions. Good thought-provoking stuff.